Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Healthy Living Live. I'm Chef AJ, and today my guest is, back by popular demand, Dr. Doug Lisle. Dr. Lisle is the co-author of this wonderful book called The Pleasure Trap. He is also the psychologist at both the McDougall Live-In Program and the True North Health Center, both located in Santa Rosa, California, as well as the founder of the website esteemdynamics.com. And he's the host of the weekly podcast, which is called Beat Your Genes, which you can listen to on Blog Talk Radio as well as iTunes. And it airs every Wednesday night live at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And you can even call into the show. So thank you so much for coming back, Dr. Lisle.
Oh, it's a great pleasure.
Right, because we actually had a question occur towards the end of your last live broadcast with me, and I knew that you couldn't answer it in 5 minutes, so I appreciate you coming back. So I'm going to just give some introduction to what we're going to talk about, and then my favorite thing to do is just let Dr. Lisle take it away. You remind me of like a thoroughbred racehorse. We have you in the gate right now, and as soon as I open the gates, we're going to let you go. So we did a previous interview on emotional eating. And one of the things we discussed was that our past does not dictate our present struggles with weight. And you've cited much research about how even if we had horrible trauma and abuse, which again, I'm not diminishing, people need to deal with that and get help. That's not the reason that people are fat and sick today. And that you've said many times that people are not overweight because they have emotional problems. They have emotional problems because people are overweight. And I encourage you to listen to all the interviews I've done with Dr. Lisle, as well as anything that Dr. Lisle has done, which is available on YouTube and his website, esteemdynamics.com. We did a particular session on emotional eating for things, whether or not the past dictates. So my question today, because this comes up all the time in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program with the participants, is does the stress that people experience today have anything to do with the fact that they make poor food choices, that they're overweight, that they relapse, that they binge? So I want to just give a little bit of a setup. In our program, which has gone on for about 6 years, we have a private group where people can post their struggles as well as their triumphs. And when they relapse, or even if they have a slip, if they have a minor slip, a major relapse, if they binge, if they eat non-compliant food, it's always prefaced with a reason. It's always, this occurred, and so I binged. This occurred, and so I ate off plan. Now, since I knew we were doing this broadcast, I literally wrote down everything, and I got over 100 things. I'm not going to read them all. And again, I'm not diminishing. Some of these things are serious, but my question is this the reason? So for example, these are the things that the participants wrote. A family member received a very serious or fatal diagnosis, so I ate off plan. A loved one passed away, or I went to a funeral, so I relapsed. My pet is sick and in the hospital. My pet passed away. I went to my in-laws for dinner. My mother-in-law was rude to me. Someone hurt my feelings. Someone was mean to me. I had a fight with my husband. My husband went out of town and left me alone. My child did not get accepted to the college they wanted to. I did not get the promotion I was seeking, or other disappointments. We were hit with an unexpected bill. I was babysitting my grandson, and they had my favorite non-compliant food in the house. Today was the anniversary of the death of a loved one. I've had a lot of stress at work. We are in the process of moving. I am lonely and I have no friends. I changed jobs. I had trouble sleeping. I sustained an injury. I was in an accident. My car broke down. The guy didn't call after the first date. My kid had the flu. My kid was picked last for sports. My kid was sitting alone at lunch in school. These are my favorite. I was cold. I was tired. I was cold and tired. Now, again, I'm not making fun of people or light of people, but of course, like if somebody in my family dies, I'm very sad too, or if my pet is sick, but it's always a reason and then a relapse. And so my concern is that I don't know anybody today that's living, that's breathing, that doesn't have stress. And if people keep believing that the stress is the reason, I'm not sure that's going to help them overcome this. So now I'm going to do my favorite thing, put you on screen by yourself and shut up and have you answer the question.
Well, I think that's a beautiful. I've never seen that laid out like that before. That's a thing of beauty. Let me try to figure out where I want to go with this. There was a set of experiments done in the 1970s, and this was among many types of experiments that led to this very same conclusion. It was published. It's a famous paper published in the prestigious journal Psychological Review by Richard Nisbett at the University of Michigan, along with his then grad student and now professor, Timothy Wilson. And the title of the article is "Telling More Than We Can Know." And what the authors explained was that people will say explanations for their behavior that are not, in fact, the reasons for their behavior. And what the authors did was that they showed a number of very clever demonstrations where people thought the reasons or reported the reasons they did certain things were clearly not the reason that they did them. And this showed that the human mind has limited insight into its motivations. Now, since that time, there's been 40 more years of neuroscience on this and many other topics. But there's probably never been a paper that was such a beautiful demonstration of this as the Nisbett and Wilson paper. Let me give you an example of the things that they did. It turns out that for some reason there was a suspected bias that when people go through an array of goods, they tend to go, if you set them up, for example, they'll go through a set of different colored socks in an array that they're looking through to try to figure out which ones they want. And it turns out that the authors switched the colors of the socks in different, they put the black ones were in the second slot or the fifth slot, or the fourth slot, and they moved these things around, and so it was all counterbalanced. It turns out that when people search through an array, they'll tend to take the things towards the end. So they're much more likely to take the fourth choice than the first choice. And I believe that's what they found. Anyway, what they discovered was people would never report this. They had no insight into that they had this process that they went through. Instead, they would always say that the reason why they chose the sock they did was because it was higher quality, that had a better feel to it. Well, of course, that wasn't the case because it's counterbalanced by other subjects. And that's a little complicated. Let me give you another example. Another example was that they had students memorize word pairs, like, for example, table, chair, lamp, dog, etc. All these word pairs that didn't really make any sense. And they got them to memorize them, a list of these things. And then they're going to recall them later. So they're trying to memorize these things. One of the pairs that they put in to the list was ocean moon. Okay, that it was just buried in this list. Then later on, they had a second experiment that they were supposed to think about products. And so they think of a drink, think of a snack, etc. Think of a laundry detergent. It turns out that the students that had memorized the list of words that did not have ocean moon in it, when they asked them later on for think of a laundry detergent, 25% of them said Tide. It turns out that when they had memorized a word pair that said ocean moon, and they asked them for laundry detergent, 50% of them said Tide. So it doubled the likelihood that the person would say Tide. Then they asked everybody in those groups, why did you think of Tide? And why did you think of the product that you thought of, whether it was Coca-Cola and some other thing, or whether it was, in this case, the laundry detergent? In no case did a single subject say, the reason why I said Tide was because I had just memorized ocean moon. Not a single one. Not only that, when the authors said, do you think that it could have been that you just memorized the word pair ocean moon 15 minutes ago? Every single subject said, not a chance. There's no way that's why. I just thought of the blocks. Okay, I was thinking of the box. As soon as I thought laundry detergent, I just thought about that Tide box. That's why. Okay, so this is a demonstration that what's going on. People have surprisingly little access to why it is that they're doing what it is that they're doing, and they're thinking what they're thinking. Now, so when people are trying to come up with a reason why it is that they went off track, they come up with plausible reasons. They don't come up with the real reasons. So the real reasons are going to be things, the same reason any animal would go off track, and that is that you're designed by nature to choose the richest food in the environment. So that's why it is that it's happening. It's not happening as a result of some stressor. It's happening just because it's happening. And it turns out that people are also not cataloging at the same time all the times that they go off track that have where there's absolutely nothing happening at all. So what you have is people are searching for a reason, and I believe that there's multiple reasons why they're searching for the reason. One reason they may be searching for the reason is to try to understand it. Another reason they're searching for a reason is they're trying to get a hold of a reason that is a socially acceptable reason to report. And so this is akin to, why were you late for work? My car, dog ate my homework, all these problems, had to take my kid to the vet, all these things that could come up. You search through plausible reasons that would be socially defensible reasons and have some degree of input on the situation. But the truth of the matter is that they're not the reason. The reason is that you stayed up too late last night, didn't get to bed on time, and therefore you were groggy getting up and didn't answer the bell on the alarm, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so there's a chain of events there. That's the reason. Not that there just happened to be mysteriously more traffic today on the way to work than there are on other days. So this is what's going on. So people, I would also say this, that when we look at things that actually get people out of a deep groove where they are doing a good job, the most important thing is time, pressure, convenience. It's basically effort and its constraints of time. So what will happen is that people will leave a groove of behavior that is essentially the most optimal cost-benefit analytic chain for executing what it is that the organism's highest priority is. So if you have done a good job on your diet, it's because you actually organized a chain of behavior in advance and you've got things well in place, where as your mind is clicking through a cost-benefit analysis on what it is that you should be doing, what's happening is you keep coming up with aces. Okay, so if you've got the food all there handy, it's all organized, you got the time to do it, all these things line up in a row and things are going very well. Now, if there's significant turbulence in your life, that there's a big shift or a big change, then we can see trouble. So this is where people are thinking that it's emotional reasons, but really it's just behavioral turbulence. So anything that causes behavioral turbulence to get you out of routine. Now what happens is that it shifts the cost-benefit analysis on your decision making. So if you're out of place and out of touch with where it is that your healthy food is, what are you going to do? Are you just going to go take an easy option that isn't in the best interest on the program? Well, the pleasure trap has got you organized that that's exactly what it would have you do. It would have you go for the easiest option that's also the highest calorie density food in the environment. So the only reason why you wouldn't do that is if you had organized a chain of behavior, a stream of healthy options that were already the best cost benefit. And in general, when it comes to the cost benefit analysis of healthy living as opposed to pleasure trap living, the truth is it's usually a very fine line anyway. It's not easy to make healthy living the default behavioral pattern that you are going to consistently execute. That's not easy to do. All around you, you're surrounded by pressures from your own biology and from your social environment. And your own biology, number one, seeking the richest food, and number two, also seeking the easiest access to food. So your own biology sits in a matrix of forces that is going to make it very, very likely for you to slip. It's only by having a well-organized situation that you're going to be able to consistently stay out of that. Any kind of turbulence that disturbs that equilibrium, where you just have a little bit of an edge towards healthy living over unhealthy living, any turbulence, and we're likely to slip. Okay, so this is actually the reasons why this is happening, and then I think what happens is that people, looking in retrospect, what they do is they tell more than they can know. Okay, and they come up with a big explanation, and the explanation sounds like this: I was essentially put under tremendous emotional hardship, and therefore I should get special dispensation and not be blamed for a lack of conscientiousness, intelligence, or emotional stability. That's what led me to then make this mistake. Okay, this is an excuse, and excuses are explanations, is what it is that they are, but they're explanations that essentially have a point to them, which is attempting to defend our status in the village. And my attitude is, hey, you don't need to defend your status with me if you're struggling with the pleasure trap, or with anybody else, quite frankly. The truth of the matter is, hey, we expect this to be difficult. You are surrounded by an environment and a mind that is embedded within that environment, that is designed by nature to be eating pizza and sucking down chocolate shakes. Okay, that's what the correct decision is, coming from your evolutionary biology. If you are remarkable enough, you're intelligent enough and diligent enough to have ever combated against that for any length of time, you get 5 gold stars on your forehead, as far as I'm concerned. If you slip, it isn't because you had some emotional crisis. It's because you had the slightest bit of disturbance in your behavioral integration plan, so that that's all it took to wobble you out of the thing. That doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't make you impulsive. It makes you an animal that wasn't designed for the environment that you're in. So just, we don't need to defend this to the village. All we have to do is look at it. Let's look at it squarely. Let's try to understand what the truth is of the problem. The truth of this problem is turbulence. Which it means that we have to spend additional time and energy keeping ourselves organized when disorder is starting to hit us. That's the idea. All right. Hopefully that's good enough for now.
Well, it's not only good enough, it's fantastic if people will just listen to this and re-listen to this, because again, a lot of these things that people list as the reasons or excuses, these are things that happened to me. But like when my dog died, I didn't eat for 2 days. And when Charles had a stressful day at work yesterday, he just didn't eat. So I just want people to know that they have options, and that if they know why they're doing it, they won't do it. And it sounds like that a lot of times it is to save face or to defend their status. And it really comes down to everything you wrote in this book. If they would just read it or reread it and understand it, I think it would be enormously helpful. So a lot of people can have a little slip and get back on track.
Sure.
But then other people, a slip can turn into a full-blown relapse. And then we also have the people where they binge. And maybe and so I guess maybe I'd like the next question to be about binging, because it seems to be so prevalent with the people in my group, especially the women. And what I see is these are the people that are always afraid to eat starch. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about how we can help these people that are binging, because it is so prevalent. Thank you.
Yes. The overarching discussion that I'm trying to explain is that the environment is more potent than you're appreciating. And it's not so much that you're emotionally weak and that you're, et cetera, that's not really the issue. The issue is that the dynamics between your brain, the way it's wired up, and the environment is very problematic. And so we have to have greater attention to detail there. So now what we're going to talk about is binging. So binging can be set up by several different types of issues. One of the major issues is the following. This is not everybody's pattern, but it's a common pattern. So I'll really talk about 2 common binging patterns. One common binging pattern is that people do a lot of caloric restricting, and they do that by eating a lot of low calorie density foods. So, or just simply trying to grit their teeth and eat less. And this, what will happen is that they'll get pretty hungry. And when they get pretty hungry, then what's going to happen is a lot of times, as you just said, AJ, that people are concerned about starches. And so they're thinking that starches are a bad thing. They sort of can't get it out of their head. They don't trust it. And probably there's numerous reasons for that. Not only has there been tremendous press against carbohydrates, but it's also the case that if you are a Weight Watcher and you're watching the scale back and forth, then what's going to happen is if you sometimes eat potatoes or rice or something like that, you're going to find that in the next day or so, your weight may go up. And it's going up because when you eat starches or you absorb glycogen, what's going to happen is you also absorb water. And so your weight can go up, but your fat content has gone absolutely nowhere. And so a person's weight might go up 2 pounds, and now they're all freaked out about this. And so they're thinking that starches are a bad thing. And then when they get away from starches, if they actually burn out their starches over 24 hours or so by doing something ketogenic or anything else under the sun, what happens is that they can lose quite a bit of weight. They might lose 2 pounds in a day. And so they're not understanding that none of this has anything to do with fat. And the only thing that matters in terms of our appearance or our health here is what we're talking about is fat. And fat changes only take place at the level of an ounce or 2 a day, and you can't see it on the scale. There's no way to observe this process. You have to only look at this process over a longer period of time. But what will happen with our bingers is that they are making misattributions about the nature of fat process. And so instead, they're watching the scale, they're watching it bounce up and down, and they are misattributing this to all kinds of things. And so one of the things that they misattribute things to is that they're afraid of starches. And by the way, when you eat starch and then you may go up a pound in the next day or so because you absorb more water, you can't see that weight anywhere. It's not fat anywhere on you, okay? This is stored deep inside of you all over the place. So it's not having any impact on your appearance whatsoever. It's not you. It's not tissue. It's actually a storage. It makes it's the same thing as having some more fiber, some more poop in your colon. Okay, this is not influencing you in any way in terms of your appearance or anything else. Now, where was I? Starch. Okay, so what will happen is one group of these folks will be essentially gritting their teeth and not wanting to eat to satiety and not wanting to eat starches as a main source of their calories. And as a result of this, what's going to happen is they're going to get hungry. And when they get hungry, their brain is basically saying, we need to eat the richest food in the environment. And then what's going to happen is they're going to drift towards the richer vegan foods if they're vegan. And they're going to start eating those vegan foods. And that's going to be so incredibly reinforcing that they're going to eat a huge amount of it. Okay, so that's one way that this happens. This is how we get people with a tablespoon in the nut butter. Okay, this is how this sort of thing happens. It's because people get really hungry and they are craving the relief that comes from having concentrated calories. You were really no way designed by nature to eat fruits and vegetables. That's really not the center of the human diet at all. Those are at the periphery and starches are at the middle. And so if we restrict those, we're going to wind up into trouble because we're going to get edgy, and now we're going to get hungry, and now we're going to get we're going to be on a mission to get the rich food. And once the rich food hits that palate, you can expect to put in an awful lot of it. That's just how that goes. The nervous system is designed by nature to be very aggressive about eating foods that are high in calorie density. Not only, you might say, well, it's more dopamine is being kicked out, but I want to look at it, forget about the dopamine. Let's look at the level of information processing about why this would have been set up this way in a Stone Age environment. The reason why is that whenever there was rich foods available, it was competitive. There was other human beings around that also had access to the rich foods, and the rich foods would have been limited. So therefore, you should be designed by nature to eat very, very quickly and eat very aggressively and get all it is that you can, because there may not be another rich food source for 90 days. And so your job is to cram in as much of the rich food as you can get your hands on and elbow everybody else out of the way. That is what the neural circuits, that is how they should be configured, and that is how they're configured. So that's why this is a big reason why people are going to binge. Now, the second reason why people are going to binge is going to be a little bit different. So what will also happen is people that will do a good job, pretty good job all day long, not be that hungry. One reason they're not that hungry is they binge the night before. So they crammed the night before on a bunch of rich foods before they went to bed. So they wake up in the morning just, a virtuous Vicky, where they do everything right because it's not a problem because they're not really hungry. So I'll have people that'll just drink tea or coffee in the morning and I don't need to eat breakfast, and they feel virtuous about it. The truth of the matter is that's not virtuous. That's a telltale sign that we ate a hell of a lot of calories less yesterday evening, and it's still stored in the liver, and we've got a lot of glycogen in there, so we're full. Now, so the person though can cruise through the day and be doing a pretty good job, and they might even get to dinner and they might do a pretty good job. But then what's going to happen is after dinner they're going to be nosing around looking for some rich food. Interestingly enough, this is about the time when people thinking that they're eating for emotional reasons. Okay. I'm lonely, I'm bored, I'm this, I'm that. Okay, let's just look at what's really happening here. What's happening is that your nervous system does things for very specific reasons. And the reasons that it does anything is it runs a cost-benefit analysis on gene survival. That is the reason why it does what it does. The feelings that you have are simply concomitants. There are things that go along with that cost-benefit analysis. So some girl that says, oh, gee, I really want to see my boyfriend, for emotional reasons. Well, of course you want to see him for emotional reasons, but let's actually look at the ultimate reasons why you want to see your boyfriend. You want to see your boyfriend because your mind is running a cost-benefit analysis on gene survival. That's actually why it is that you want to see your boyfriend, okay? So you may want to establish a mating relationship with this guy that you're just getting started on, or you actually may want to mate with him, which is what the genes would want you to do in order to get pregnant. Or you want to make sure that he's with you and he's not investing in other people. In other words, what's happening is the reason why is that this is associated with gene survival. As a result of that, what happens is the nervous system gives you a printout of the optimal cost-benefit solution as it directs you with a thing called emotion, okay? So when people say I eat for emotional reasons, then it's always useful to say, well, what is the reasoning that drives the emotion? Okay, so the way that the mind works is it works computation first, emotion second, and behavior third. That is the pathway by which things happen for all animals. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the binging behavior that takes place in the evening repetitively with a lot of people. The reason why is that the brain is running a cost-benefit analysis. And then the person's intuition might be, I feel kind of bored. But actually what's happening is the nervous system is sweeping around its entire context of understanding where it sits in the universe and what its behavioral options are. And what it's doing is it's running a cost-benefit analysis on the following question. What behavior can I now execute that will optimize my gene survival? That's actually what the nervous system is doing. And so as it looks around, it says, do I have any attractive mates attacking me and trying to pin me to the ground here? No. Okay. Maybe I don't. Okay. And so in that case, let's see. Well, is there any attractive mate that I could get on the phone? Is there any attractive mate I could get on Skype? If the answer is no, 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 which is what it is with me, what will happen next is I'll be thinking, well, what food could I eat? Well, the truth is I'm already full. Yes, I am already full. So it's not worth eating any more low calorie dense food, but it would be worth cramming in some high calorie dense food. that would be worth it. Is there any rich, rare, high calorie density food anywhere in my environment? Because if there is, it could be the case that eating that food would be the best thing that my genes can come up with in terms of the optimal behavior for gene survival. Is the door open somewhere and making it cold, wasting the energy that I'm gonna have to pay a check? No. Are the kids in? My kids are my cats. Same thing. Are the kids safe and fed? Yes, the kids are safe and fed. All right, kids are safe and fed. No mate around trying to tackle me. What else is there? What about the war situation? Let me turn on the TV and see if my team is winning the war. Okay, my team isn't at war tonight, so therefore there's nothing worth watching. Okay, so now what could I do? Well, the war situation is fine. The kids are fine. There is no mate. I'm full of healthy food. What's the next best thing that I could do for my gene survival? Answer, cram in any rich food that's in the environment. Okay, so the nervous system then selects its way through the optimal solutions, and it basically runs a cost-benefit analysis on energy expended versus essentially gene survival profit. And what's going to happen is very often the best solution is going to be to eat the rich food in the environment. That will pretty well trump just about anything else. If the cat is scratching at the back door, that will be more important than eating some rich food that I have managed to harvest out of my pantry, because as a parent, that disturbing nervous system as it's back there might be under threat from some bully cat that I need to intimidate, and I need to get the cat in. So you will watch me as I will take care of that first. If there's any pain in my foot, okay, that will get taken care of first. The nervous system is going to scroll its way through all of the possible options and all the costs associated with those options, and it's going to arrive at the cost-benefit ratio that is optimal. This is essentially the concept of behavioral efficiency. So this is how animals are configured. They're actually configured for optimum efficiency in their behavior. Now, so emotions will signal what those are. They will tell you, wait a second, this is the optimal efficiency to do, because that's going to feel the best, or it's feeling terrible and we need to fix it. All right. But when you're sitting around a little bit bored in the evening after you're already full of healthy food, and you start watching your mind rotate its way towards the richest food in the environment, all you're watching is this cost-benefit analysis. You're not eating for, quote, emotional reasons. You're eating for optimal behavioral efficiency for gene survival reasons. That's actually what's taking place. Now watch what's going to happen. In that environment, if all there is fresh fruits and vegetables and some steamed potatoes and some vegan chili, etc., and I'm already full, I won't eat anything in there, because the truth is I'm already full. So there isn't anything that is super efficient to do, because there's no evidence that there's any shortage of that, and I'm not really shortage of calories. The only reason why I would cram in any rich food right now and binge is if there was food that was particularly rich that would be rare, and I better get to it before any of these other humans that are around here are going to get to it. Okay, so that's what's going to happen, and the nervous system is going to feel a drive to do that. So that's why it's not going to be nearly as often that I would hop on a car and go somewhere and get that stuff. I might. Okay, if literally I had nothing other intelligent to do, I had no life, the cats are fine, there's no war on, and there's nothing good, there's nothing to do. And I don't want to face my desk, okay? So all of that is taking place, and I might actually get in the car and go find some food to cram. That could happen, but it's not going to happen nearly as often as if that food is right there in the pantry or in the freezer, okay? If it's in the pantry or in the freezer, then the cost-benefit analysis is going to say, wow, all we're going to have to do is 13 seconds of behavioral action and less than half a calorie worth of muscle contraction, and we're going to be cramming 700 calories of rich food down our gullet, and it's worth doing. That's exactly what's happening there. Now, when people do that repetitively, then we know what happens. And what happens is that they set up a conditioning paradigm. The nervous system gets used to it. And by getting used to it, what I mean is that the nervous system essentially anticipates that it's going to be getting crammed on. And as a result of that, even after you're full, the nervous system braces itself for the cramming that is to come. And it's sure that there's going to be cramming coming because there's been cramming on 13 of the last 17 days. So if there's been cramming in the last 13 of the last 17 days, or the last 6 days in a row, or the last 60 days in a row, or 50 out of the last 65 days in a row. In other words, if this is a very common event, then the nervous system is going to engineer a bracing defense against the cram that is going to be coming. And that bracing defense is a whole set of neurochemistry that is also in reflexes that are going to cause the digestive system to be activated. So effectively, it's going to get ready for the cramming that is about to take place. And the cramming that's about to take place, if it doesn't take place, what's going to happen is that the feelings associated with the defense are going to linger inside the nervous system and the body, and that's going to be what you and I call craving. Okay, this is what craving is. This is what craving a cigarette is. So the nervous system, once the nervous system gets used to the fact that it's going to get nicotine every hour, then if you don't get the nicotine, what happens is it's engineering a defense against the nicotine. It is bracing itself for the nicotine. And if you don't get the nicotine, what's going to happen is that there's an agitation in the nervous system about the defense that the body has created for the nicotine, and that's what we call craving. Okay? When the person then lights up a smoke and puffs, the nicotine meets the defense, and it's a relief. They neutralize each other, and that's how that works. So a person that has been cramming repetitively, very often, they're having a craving after dinner. And they're like, this is strange because I'm having a craving, but my craving is, I'm not hungry because I'm really full, but I'm sort of craving anyway, so I sort of feel hungry. So this puzzle has been discussed by a lot of people. I saw the movie the other night that I'm in. What's it called? Oh, Eating You Alive. Okay. And I saw Joel Furman, and I thought he was very good in this movie. And he's talking about this sort of hunger and the craving and the frustration, et cetera. Joel is really, you're looking at a veteran of thousands of patient interviews where he's been trying to figure this out, and he's had a lot of different ideas about this. Alan too. Alan also has been trying to figure this out, and they haven't quite had it until now. They've described it beautifully. Alan Goldhammer has always said to people, well, now wait a second. You say you're craving food, you're hungry, but it's a specific hunger, isn't it? It's never apples. It's never more asparagus. He used to tell people, if you're still hungry, go eat some more salad. And everybody rolls their eyes and laughs. And yet what we now can see is that what this really is it's classical conditioning. That what's happening here is that the nervous system has conditioned itself to, when it's full, it's expecting to get a bunch of rich food, and it's defending itself against the predicted onslaught of the rich food, generally high-fat food that it's about to get hit with. And as a result, it's getting defenses ready to neutralize and digest that food. And if you essentially expect that it's coming, but you don't feed it, what happens is that state lingers in the nervous system and creates what we're going to call craving. This is the toxic hunger that Joel Furman's talking about. This is the specific hunger that Alan's talking about. This is what these guys are describing, okay? And now I'm calling it something else. So coming out of the wings of psychology, we're calling it classical conditioning, and we're actually calling it a conditioned compensatory response. This is out of Shepard Siegel's work, in the 1980s. Now, and actually even recently, they're still publishing on these issues. So this is what it is that this is, and this is why people cram. And the way we get out of this, Dr. Furman was saying 3 or 4 days. It's like very beautiful wishful thinking. As through this whole genre of hyper healthy living, my friends have always said it's quick and easy, and you just do this, and it's like, it's never quick and easy. This is a dogfight. you're in a street fight with evolutionary biology. And it is true that maybe in 3 or 4 days, some people can sort of break through an extinction burst, but it's more like a couple of weeks. It's more like a couple of weeks. So maybe in the first few days, you get rid of most of it. I've actually had now in the last year that I've been talking about this, I've had a lot of people that didn't have a lot of problems with the essentially initial defense of the body and frustration and the cravings. When they started to do this, I've had other people that were completely defeated. So the intensity of the defense, in other words, the extent of the cravings, can differ considerably from person to person. But I would tell most people, you can expect a pretty significant fight for a week. If you've been cramming fairly repetitively and you get cravings and bored in the evening and feel like eating something, okay, what that is, that's your nervous system now engineering an anticipated defense against the food that it's expecting because you have repetitively crammed in the evenings often enough. It doesn't have to be every evening. It just has to be often enough that the nervous system expects this to happen. And if you do that, you're likely to have this craving. And then obviously, if we give into it, we've now reinforced it. And now we're going to make it, it's harder to climb out of it. So this is what this is. And I encourage people to look at the webinar called The Conditioned Cram. It was in September of 2017 with Gustavo and I on the McDougall webinar. This is what we're all talking about, okay? So whether it's Alan's horse laugh about the specific hunger, Dr. Furman's toxic hunger, my conditioned cram, I'm sure other guys have talked in other ways about this. This is a real phenomenon, okay? And this is a significant obstacle that drives binge eating. That binge eating binge eating is a struggle, and it's not just simply a bad habit. It's actually you've set up a little conditioning paradigm. You're effectively addicted to binging, and we have to go through the white knuckling. I think it's not even close to the level of cigarette. It's more about the level of coffee. Okay, that's about the level of this addictive process. The annoyance that you feel getting off a couple of cups of coffee a day is probably similar to the annoyance and frustration that you're going to feel counter-conditioning a cram circuit. Okay? All right.
That is amazing. I just want to say that so many people keep saying the same thing we've told you before. They just love your laugh. So keep laughing. They just... So I love that you said about how you're just hardwired to cram the richest food in the environment. So we have a few minutes left, so I guess I'll ask you about the environment, because you are one of the first people that I've heard this from, probably when I met you 8 years ago. And you said, and you've said this often, is that we have to work harder on our environment than we do ourselves. I stated as if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. Dr. Carrie Saunders says if you hang out in a barber shop, it's only a matter of time till you get a haircut.
I love that.
So recently when we had a discussion, you were talking about how people that are very agreeable, also very social, and very open to experience are going to have a harder time with this. And what I've noticed is the people that refuse to clean up their environment for whatever reason, again, we could have a whole nother session about the excuses they make. They seem to be very agreeable people. Mm-hmm. I've probably worked with not as many people as you, but I've probably worked with thousands of people now, and I've only had 2 people in an unclean environment that were successful, but they were like me, a disagreeable bitch. They were able to do it. So I don't know how to help people that won't clean up their environment, because even the people that have spouses that are willing to have the locked refrigerators and the locked cabinets, they still know that stuff is there, and occasionally they see it. So I guess in the last few minutes, if you could just please bring it home and explain to people that the environment is it's everything. It's everything.
Yeah, this is sort of it's maybe hard for me to describe or try to get this point across. People that have heard me talk about personality or heard me talk about psychology, and I'm always talking about genes, and I'm talking about our hardwiring, etc. They then, and certainly with respect to personality issues, they end up with this question, because it appears to be that I'm saying that your environment can't change you. And I agree with that. In other words, your environment can't change who it is that you are by nature. Cannot do so. A big hope in the 20th century, at the dawn of the 20th century, psychology was pushed forward by Pavlov's work in classical conditioning, and then later by Skinner's work in operant conditioning. So learning theory, the notion that you could modify people, was huge. And the idea was that people were ultimately tremendously flexible. And this became the bedrock theory under all of the social sciences, really, and is the fundamental tenet that sits underneath sociology and cultural anthropology and much of psychology. And I just totally disagree with this. For essentially, I'm just saying, no, that isn't how it is. Now, then, but what do I then should we care about the environment? And the answer is, yeah, we should care about a lot more of the environment than we did before. The notion before was that the environment could shape you. Well, if it could shape you, then we wouldn't need to worry about you so much because we've twisted you into something new. And I'm saying, no, you're not going to twist me into something new. You're not going to change me at all. So therefore, it's essential that the environment fit me very well. We need to find or create an environment that is excellent for me, okay, that fits me very well, because I'm not changing. I am the person I am. Okay, so therefore, if you got a kid that doesn't like broccoli, don't keep trying to, I don't know, do what? Pet him on the head every time he takes a bite of broccoli. So, or et cetera. Let him pet the cat. Like, I don't know. Or let him play with his, I don't know, Pokemon every time he eats broccoli. Like, no, the kid doesn't like broccoli. And we're not going to make him eat broccoli because he's not going to do it. So therefore, let's try asparagus. Okay, let's try peaches. We got to try something else because that's not working. So actually, the environment is more important. So if the environment could shape us, then you could throw me in a Russian gulag and I would wind up, quote, maybe you could have me like the gulag and I'd be happy in the Russian gulag. No, I'm not going to be happy in the Russian gulag. When I come out of the Russian gulag, have I changed into sort of a Russian that likes, things regimented? No, I haven't changed at all. Same personality. I just spent 5 years in misery and I got some bad memories for it, but I'm the same guy. That's how that works. So the issue is that you are you. That's for whatever advantages or disadvantages, who it is that you are is who it is that you are. We need to have great respect for that. And so our job is then to figure out, how are we going to, the environment that you're in, if you're having troubles, it isn't working very well for you. We need to identify the factors in the environment that are causing you to have either physical problems or psychological problems. That's what we need to do. We need to have a deep respect for the fact that this is not a good fit. That's how it works. So if you got problems with your mother-in-law, let's not try to fix you so that you get along better with your mother-in-law. If you got a boss that's a nasty SOB, let's not try to fix you so that you can get along better with your nasty boss who's an SOB. Let's get you to a different job and get you a nice boss to the point where it's like, oh my God, my life is so much better now that I'm not working for that SOB. Okay? So why would we change you? Why wouldn't we just take a look at what it is that we're feeling and what's happening and change the environment? That's what we want to do. When it comes to healthy living, I'm not going to change you. If you are open to experience and you are agreeable, etc. What was the other one, AJ? Open to experience
social.
And social. If you're open, if you're adventurous, and you're social and you're agreeable, that is almost checkmate. That is very, very close to checkmate in healthy living. It's not checkmate, but it's close. Okay, so what's an interesting experiment is True North Health Center. You take people there of all different personalities and you put them all in a room and you put them in a place where all there is healthy food. It's right there. Are there some people sneaking out? Yeah, there's always some outlier that's spending their money, coming to the whole thing, but they got enough issues that they're still sneaking out, but rare. Most people there, the food is all there. It's enough. It's varied enough. They're committed enough. There's enough social support around for doing the right thing. We essentially create an environment that is highly conducive to success. And while people are there, they are very successful. You see, we didn't change the people. We changed their environment. And we have massive success when we change their environment. If we instead said, come to True North Health Center and you're going to spend hours a day with Dr. Lisle, and we're going to work on, making you more disagreeable and making you less open and making you less social, etc. Are you kidding me? And I had like a shock apparatus that every time you smiled at somebody, I shocked you so that I got you less social. Like, come on. There's no way we're going to change you. And that's not what we're here to do. What we're here to do is for you to get smart about your environment, and to take it very seriously, and to take seriously who it is that you are, and say, wait a second, where am I repetitively getting into trouble? Because wherever it is that I'm consistently getting into trouble, I need to do what I can do to change that environmental factor. Whether it's specific individuals that are a problem, whether it's specific times of day and circumstances that are a problem. So this is where I'm getting hungry and I don't have any decent food. And it turns out that there's my favorite, pastrami sandwich place is right there on the corner, right about the time that I get hungry on my way home. Okay. So we need to operate within the environment very, very intelligently. And so this means an attention to environmental detail that is at a whole other level than people are generally thinking about. And so this is where we get into trouble. This is where, when we have some little emotional thing happen, which is in fact nothing other than a stressful time, energy, process, disrupts our, puts turbulence in our behavioral pattern. We have to be better at preparing for those essentially environmental turbulences. And so we have a better grasp of what it is to do, so we can execute on a more sophisticated plan. That's the idea. I'll end this with a story, an interesting story about me and swimming with a friend of mine that I think is a good example of this. So 5 or 10 years ago, I had a friend and his wife. They were into swimming, and he was insisting that it would be really good for me. And so the first time I went swimming with him at his gym, it was miserable because I'm skinny and I sink like a rock, and the water's in my eyes and it's cold. It's just like this. I swam for like 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm out of here. Forget it. And so he's like, no, well, what's wrong? I said, I'm cold. My ears hurt. Water in my eyes. I sink. It's like everything's wrong. He goes, well, okay, let's get you a buoyancy belt. So the next time I came with a buoyancy belt, and then I'm like, my front end is sinking and my back end is up. It didn't work. So then I'm cold anyway. So then I had like a top wetsuit. So I put on the top wetsuit and the buoyancy belt. Oh, well, now I'm scooting across the water much better. But the mask, I got a big nose. And so the mask, like my big nose is pushing against the mask. So the seal isn't good and it's leaking. It's like, oh, now I got to get a different mask. So then I got a different mask that fit. I don't know. I had to custom order it. Okay. So now I got a mask that fits, that seals. And so now I'm not cold. Now I've got buoyancy. And so then what? Well, it turns out my ears hurt because they get cold. Oh, okay. So now I got to get stuff in my ears. So now finally I get stuff in my ears. I get the mask. I have the buoyancy belt. Now I have the wetsuit. Now I'm swimming. It's great. It was great. So I did that for quite a while. And then, I moved away and things changed and never recovered it. Okay. But the point is that that's what it took to get that integrated. And once it was finally integrated, it went smooth. And I actually did feel great. There's kind of nothing like swimming for some overall endorphin effect and all the joints. And I mean, it's really good. I'm not doing it now because I'm too lazy and I don't have a friend pushing me and I've lost all my equipment. I don't know where it is. I'd have to start from scratch. But that is an example of sometimes how many details have to be solved in an environmental behavioral, in a behavioral chain in order to make something really work well for you. And so that's what we are doing. That's what Chef AJ is doing. That's what all of us in this arena are doing, is trying to help encourage specific pieces. It is not that simple. When we really look at how many pieces there are, there's quite a few pieces. There's quite a few pieces to it. And so sometimes when you get tripped up, we want to look at it as not just some emotional event. Let's look at it as a piece where we weren't quite ready, and we need to get better at adding one more little detail to how it is that we are ready for our environment. Okay?
Wow. People are just like loving this. And I appreciate everything you say is brilliant. You know more about everything than most people know about anything, but this may be one of your best talks, and the technology gods were with us. There's been no sound glitches. This is brilliant. I appreciate what you said about the environment so much, Dr. Lisle, because twice now when I've been at True North, participants have had family members that suddenly died. Close family members. One person had an uncle that died, one person that had a sister that died, and they were very upset. But because they came for so far, they just couldn't leave. I mean, they could have, but they chose not to. And as upset as they were, they still lost weight at True North. And so the environment is so critical. And as you said, we can't change our personality. The environment is probably the only thing we have the ability to control and change. So why wouldn't we? And on that note, Bailey's barking. Okay, that means it's time to go. So thank you guys so much. This will be on YouTube within 24 hours. And thank you so much, Dr. Lisle, for all you do. And again, please, if you haven't read this book, everything is explained there. But I think when Dr. Lisle talks, it makes it even more understandable. It will be available on audio soon. So thank you, Dr. Lisle. Thanks, everyone, for watching another episode of Healthy Living Live. I make healthy taste delicious, and Dr. Lisle makes it understandable. Take care, everyone.
Bye, folks.
I can never end the broadcast. There we go. Frustrating.